Hey kiddos, thanks so much for joining me for episode 9 of Chronicles in Collecting, where we're going to take a look at the ArtFX J Seto Kaiba figure. It's a little bit of a detour or maybe distraction from sort of my normal unboxing videos where we typically do either Gundams or other robot shows. This is really one of the few sort of human type figures that I have, so we'll be going back to our regularly scheduled program next week, but I did get this and I'm pretty excited about it. So this figure was about 9,600 yen, or about $90. It came out in January of this year. It's actually, unlike most of the figures we look at that usually sell out sort of like immediately or are very hard to get or old, this figure is still pretty readily available for about 80, 85 bucks on a number of different stores. You could actually buy it if you want it, which is cool. For anyone who doesn't know, Seto Kaiba is the main protagonist of the manga / show Yu-Gi-Oh! The manga came out in 1996, and then there were kind of two shows that came from it. There was one show in 1998 that ran for 27 episodes, and then there was a second series in the year 2000 that ran for 224 episodes. And then Yu-Gi-Oh! Went on from that to be this, super large property. It's spawning a bazillion series and spin-offs and this, that, and the other thing. Among those are Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, 5Ds, Zexal, ArcV, Vrains, and Sevens. Plus, like I said, a number of different movies. There were some crossovers. There's manga, anime. I mean, it's a huge multimedia thing. Obviously, a big part of it is the card game as well, which we won't really get into, but just sort of the basics of Yu-Gi-Oh! So it kind of started off with this boy Yugi, who's the protagonist. He gets this ancient Egyptian puzzle that he puts together, and then he is sort of granted the spirit of this ancient pharaoh, who is the king of all games. And the early chapters of the manga and the original TV show really focused on this king of games aspect. So usually Yugi would run into some, evil person or some bad person, and he would challenge them to some sort of game. And then Yugi would obviously always defeat them because he's the king of games, and the person would be punished. And then at some point, they kind of transitioned to, they were playing a card game, which was sort of similar but legally distinct from Magic the Gathering. And then the show / manga became completely about the card game. In terms of the anime, the end, probably the last, half dozen or 10 episodes of the show were about the card game. And then the entire second series and all of the spin-offs are just about the card game. They also have a dice game, but they're effectively all about the card game. And the original kind of series and the first few volumes of the manga were kind of pretty violent, and especially considering that the card game portion of the manga and the TV show is a lot more child-friendly, probably aimed more towards people, in the early to mid-teens or something like that. And obviously the card game is played by people, worldwide. Seto Kaiba has always been my favorite character from the show. His deal is basically he's this like super rich, spoiled kid. He is able to get like every card. Anybody that's played any sort of card games, knows that person. They have every card. They always have the newest stuff. They're always able to build the best deck. And Kaiba is sort of that, vilified in Yu-Gi-Oh! He's a complete jerk. He's rude, he's mean, but he does have a charm to him that for some reason, always made me really like the character. So let's take a look at this figure. I suspect this unboxing might go a little bit faster than some of the other ones because there's not too much to this guy. I think he has one or two accessories. There's nothing that we have to build or pose or anything like that. Let's see what we got here. And while I'm taking this out for the first time, we actually have a playmat that matches the figure in question, which is always a nice little addition when I'm able to do that. All right, so here's the figure. Oh, more tape. Japanese figures do love their tape. think this figure is about 9-10 inches tall, so about as big as my Gal Gaigar and much taller than my other Gundam, so I will have to find someplace other than my shelf to keep this figure. Otherwise it'll look really weird that I have a giant Seto Kaiba next to a Gundam that is much, much smaller. Alright, so put this to the side. Alright, so let's get this figure here. So this is the first time. Let's take a look at this. Really cool detailing. It's a pretty, somewhat basic design. So this version of Kaiba is from the second arc of the kind of trading card game version of the series called Battle City. Basically, Kaiba learns about these super rare cards called the God cards. He's given one of them. They're all one-of-a-kind cards, one of each in the world, and he needs to find a way to get the other three, so he throws this huge tournament where the loser has to give up their best card, all of which is a grand scheme for Kaiba to obtain all three of the God cards. Like all of the other parts of Yu-Gi-Oh, it gets completely out of hand. At one point, they're like on this giant blimp, and they're like standing on top of the blimp flying. Then they wind up on like this deserted island, and they blow it up with like a nuclear missile. That's pretty much how so basically Yu-Gi-Oh, every plot starts off with them playing a card game and then things going completely out of hand. At one point, the U.S. Army reaches out to Kaiba, and you need to help them take down this like villain. But yeah, so Yu-Gi-Oh! It's all about being kind of like over the top, taking things like way too seriously, and I think that this figure sort of shows that, obviously this is a very elaborate costume to be wearing to a trading card game. Anyone that's played Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Knows that people typically don't dress like this. Put it on the stand here, and we can do a little bit of a 360 view while I take a look at the I love this stand. Sounds a little weird today. So again, not much in the accessories. Kaiba's sort of making his signature pose where he is pulling a card from his deck very dramatically. Might be in a bit of a bind and needs to draw a card. Unfortunately, the cards are not they're not detailed. They're just kind of blank. The back of them is show accurate though. And I think that, when the figure's holding them, that's really all you're going to see. But it would have been cool to have maybe one of his signature cards sort of being drawn. What is a nice touch, so obviously in this show where they're sort of very elaborately playing this card game, you can't just play cards at a table. That would be way too quaint. So Kaiba has invented this dual disc system through a variety of like projections and lasers and holograms and such, so that you could play anywhere, and it's sort of this like big attraction, and all the monsters are humongous. So they gave his dual disc with another hand to hold the the cards that are that he's drawn. This dual disc also, which is a nice touch. You can't see it right there, but it says 4,000 life points, which is the starting total in the game. So again, a nice little detail showing that whoever made this figure was sort of thinking about it. I'm going to just take a quick look at the instructions, though I think even I could deal without the instructions on this one. And my understanding is that the jacket can come off. I don't really know how that works. I don't think this jacket comes off. I feel like me taking this jacket off is just going to break it. And he's just wearing a black shirt, nothing too exciting underneath there. So let's quickly swap arms here. Oh, that was easy. Yeah, so much easier than the Gundam figures that I'm used to dealing with, where it's taking an hour or more to kind of figure out what the heck is going on with these things. Let's see if I can actually get these cards into his hand. Oops. Oh, that one didn't go. Unfortunately, the playmat has the same card designs as the accessories, so I can't quite see. Oh, here it is. I can't quite see where it went. So here's the card that he drew. cards in his hand. Yep. Yeah, so pretty straightforward. I'd say if I was, obviously I think kind of what you see here is what you get. It's not a posable figure. It doesn't do a bunch of stuff. It basically does this pose. And if you like this pose, you should get it. If you don't like this pose, then probably not going to be the figure for you. There is a pop-up Parade Kaiba where he is wearing the same outfit, but it does have a slightly different pose, and that guy's coming out I think in October of this year for $45. I haven't figured out if I'm going to get it. It's a little shorter than this one. I don't know if I want to have two Kaiba figures next to each other that aren't the same size. If I was going to make one complaint about the figure, it's that the detailing's nice, but maybe the quality isn't as high as some of the other figures I'm used to. There's a few little spots where the paint is chipped, and obviously you saw me just take it out. I was pretty careful with it. I didn't really touch anything. So, the point that like there's a random spot, on the jacket or whatever that has a little paint chipped, is probably just more of a defect. I'm going to pause real quickly. I have a little bit of a Seto Kaiba display at my house. I'm going to put this guy on the display, and I'll take a picture of that to end the video. Back. Sorry a little bit for the shaky cam footage. This shelf is pretty high, so I don't really have a good place to put the camera. We can see the figure there, right there in the middle of my Kaiba display. Got a few theme decks, some boxes, some tins, and other various Kaiba memorabilia. And as you can see, it kind of looks great there. Kaiba basically has like 4 different poses, so the figure captures one of them. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Chronicles in Collecting. New videos go up every Wednesday, and please make sure to join me next week where we are going to take a look at the Mobile Suit Double Z Gundam as well as do a Double Z Gundam primer. Thanks so much and keep collecting.